Let's talk about the budget situation. I realize it's a contentious topic. We could go any number of directions, and rather than have me cross-examine people about what I think about particular issues, maybe give you each an opportunity to talk a little bit about where you think it's at and where you think you might like to go. Let's start with you, Senator Frantz. We know that we have conference committees that have been appointed. Tell our viewers a little bit on the budget standpoint where you see things.
Well, since this is my first time going through it, I have to take, the life I lived before I got here, and I'm a small business owner, and I would say the state had a surplus, so that's like a business that brought in a little more revenue than it thought it would. And then you try to figure out what's going to make the business go forward. We have quality of life, we have great schools, we have great services. What I think is going to happen is I can't tell. We have cuts in health and human services that affect the people in our district. We have transportation where some would say we'd like to fund it more effectively. We have a tax bill where at least it's fair to say all sides don't agree on where the state's priorities are. And so I'm looking forward to having a front row seat. And I literally sit in the front row on the floor of the Senate, so I can see some cool stuff up there. And I honestly can't tell. It's also hard to see how the governor's office plays in with the process. Not having been through it before, I'm hoping for all three voices to be heard and for the things I think Minnesotans want us to do. I guess what I would say from my own standpoint in the budget is if you did have a business where you planned on $45 in revenue and you brought in $46, my first instinct would not be to cut the things that I'd done in that business to make it a successful business, whether it's education or health and human services, transportation, those things. My first instinct would be to say, it's been a great year, and the people that work at our business and benefit from it have enjoyed it, and I would not want to do anything that undermines it. And I guess the last thing from a budget standpoint, whether it's your home or your business or just the way you run things, is I do believe there's some great arguments being made about long-term stability of the budget. We have come to the point, folks, where Minnesota is a very well-run state financially, and we don't want to do things like you see in the Senate Health and Human Services bill that raise some questions about where the budget's going to be in 5 or 6 years. And I want to preserve the reserve and make sure that we're stable for a long time. We've fought through some deficits in the last 10 years, and I think we should be proud of it. And I also watch the ratings that we get on bonding, since we're working on our agreement here amongst the four of us that it's a great time to borrow money. That also depends on what the people on Wall Street think of your state and how well run it is and how solid it is financially, and that actually saves money. So well-run financial ship pays for itself in many different ways. And that's my long-winded way of saying I'm not sure how the budget thing will go.
A fair answer. Senator Ralph, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I guess I want to make sure that we understand something here. We talk about cuts. As I understand it, with some very small exceptions, nobody is getting cut below their base budget. In other words, if we do nothing, the state grows by 7% and some change. And we're not doing anything with that. What we're doing with is how much more of this we spend. And one of the things that I think is important, and that from the constituents in my district, was very simple. Unlike a business that sells a product or sells a service and results in, gee, we got $46 instead of $45, that money came to the business because somebody wanted to buy something. So it was voluntary. The government, on the other hand, when it collects taxes, does that without, in essence, the donative intent or the purchase intent of the people in the state. So we have to remember that money, that surplus, is a little different than the surplus in a business. Now, it's very good to use business concepts to say that if you have some money, you might want to put some aside for a rainy day. But in the end of the argument, we have to remember whose money that actually is. It's not the state's. It's not ours. It's the taxpayers. And so I think that one of the things we have to do is, there is a balancing, obviously. We certainly want to provide the services that we need to provide for the people who are in our state or are depending on those. But more importantly, and this is part of what I've been working on, especially in the human services area, because I sit on that committee, is trying to examine how we're spending that money. How effective are we in delivering it to the people who are receiving those necessary services? How much do we have overlap? Do we have duplication? are the services being delivered in a fashion that is user-friendly? And one of the things that personally I can say I'm pretty proud of is that we've taken a pretty strong step in the human services area to begin to address that, and that is to create a system of data sharing amongst the various human services agencies, so that when a person comes into the system, that if they, and this is focused on young children, but I think it can expand to other areas, when that person comes into the system, they can voluntarily agree that, yes, we have a 2-year-old child, we want that child tracked across the system. So if they have a developmental disability, that developmental disability service comes to them. They don't have to go looking for it. That's going to save money from the standpoint of administration. It's going to mean a better delivery of the service. And it's going to also, by its very nature, sort out duplications. Because if everybody in the system knows that that service is being delivered, we're not going to have 2 or 3 different agencies trying to do that. And I think that that's something that now goes back to the budget question, and that is that if at the same time we can create a budget that is fiscally responsible with the money that we took from the taxpayers, and at the same time streamline the system and gain efficiencies and money there, we have a better, more solid budget. And I think in many of the cases that's what we're trying to do. But I want to reiterate that, to my knowledge, that with very few exceptions, in all of these omnibus bills, nobody gets actually cut. They just didn't get as much of an increase as they thought they were going to get.
So the one exception to that, of course, is Metro Transit, which has cut $122 million. I mean, it is devastated, and it will, and that's in the House bill. Where we are in the process right now is House and Senate have both passed their bills. They're very different. The House and Senate bills are very different from one another. What the governor has said is, I can't negotiate with 2 Republican caucuses. You guys have to agree first about that structure that you were just describing. When the 2 of you, House and Senate, agree, then I enter and see where are you now and what are the problems for me. So I think we're hoping that that conversation between the House and the Senate, one big issue, for example, the House has a $1.35 billion tax cut. The Senate has $900 million. That's a pretty big difference. And the governor wants to be sure that we don't go back where we were a decade ago, when we thought we had boatloads of money when Jesse Ventura was governor. And so we gave money back, we cut taxes, and then the economy turned around and we were in trouble. And we shifted, we borrowed from schools, we told schools, we'll give you your money next year. And then schools, if they didn't have reserves, they had to borrow. And the rating agencies didn't like that. They lowered our credit rating based on how we were balancing our budget, because it was anything but that careful process that you were. It was shifts and gimmicks and borrowing. And now we've just turned that around. We've repaid the schools, we've repaid those shifts, we've put money in the savings account, in the reserve, and we are stable. And everyone needs to understand, we talk about a surplus, that's a forecast. If everything goes right in the economy, we may have a surplus. It's a forecast. It's not money in the bank. So being very careful with that, I think, is what we need to be doing right now.
Just to address that very point, the governor has said that he wants us, if you wish, the House and the Senate to get together and kind of come up with a single plan, and that's well and good. The problem I think that we have to also take into account is let's just take the tax cut for a minute. $1.3 billion in the House, $900 million in the Senate. The governor is at $275 million. Now, it seems to me a little bit difficult for us as a caucus, if you wish, to take and reconcile 1.3 and 900 million, and still have this 275 million floating out there as okay, you guys get everything ready and then come to me and we'll talk about the difference between your combined budget and my 275 million, as opposed to having, and I think this is something that we would encourage and that I believe leadership is trying to do, is to encourage the governor to come to the deliberations ahead of time.
And he will through his commissioners. He's sending his commissioners.
And that's what we would like.
Representative Becker, I want to give you a thought. We only have about 4 minutes left.
Well, I'll be quick here. You know, that is one of the budget process. I am disappointed that the governor has not been actively involved. sooner because he is the governor of the state. But let me just talk about where we're at. We unfortunately, with our tax climate, you're a business owner, we are having people leaving our state. And we on the House side believe that the people who make the money should keep more of their money, and businesses, families, and so forth. It's sad that we are one of the highest tax states for senior citizens. Our bill gives $269 million back for senior citizens. We also give the first $200,000 valuation of property for business owners. We know as a business owner, if you make the right investments, you're going to see growth. If we let people keep their own money, invest it into the economy, we're going to see growth in the state. And that's the whole thing. It's that whole idea. Who is better at spending money? The business, their own money, businesses, families, individuals, or the state? I will always go on the side of the family. They work hard. They need to invest the money what they want to do. And also on the House side, we're doing the first thing in the nation, which is funding for student loan debt. Credits back on there to help students there because we want to help them too. So it's a win-win situation because we're allowing individuals, families, middle class to keep their money and do what they think is important, which in the end will help the whole state.
Barry, if you don't mind, I think one
Give
thing...
you the last thought, and then we'll move on to
Okay.
a couple of other topics.
I hope there's one thing that we all agree on, that Minnesotans are smart, they work hard, and they get what they pay for. So as we look at the budget, efficiencies would be great. If we're able to do the same things for less money, that's fine. Minnesotans would be happy about that. If we're talking about doing less things, that's when I think people start to ask questions about what's best for us. And as far as the business climate or the taxes, I think I just want us all to keep in mind, in 2015, CNBC said Minnesota is the #1 state in the country to do business in. And I believe the state saw the highest number of filers for taxes that declared $1 million of income in history in that same year. So I always get a little touchy when we talk about how terrible it is to do business because of our tax climate. And I'm just pointing out that I'm cheering for Minnesota to be a great place to do business. And some of the taxes we pay go to a quality of life that a lot of other states wish they had. I watched Kansas and some of the choices they made about tax cuts and the way the citizens of Kansas now, I think, wish they hadn't done that. And so I'm just saying, I think Minnesotans understand you get what you pay for, and we can debate what we want to pay for.
Well, one quick comment. Unfortunately, if you go from Canada down to Iowa, on the western part of the border, we do not have one community larger on the Minnesota side compared to the Dakotas. Milbank's larger than Ortonville, Sisseton, the Browns Valley, Fargo, Moorhead. And in the 50s, Breckenridge was the big community over Wahpeton, so we're not doing it quite right. So I agree. We want to keep those services, but we also want to reward individuals who's willing to take those risks.